Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with the final part in all of the books that I read in 2023. So this is a series that I've been doing and just taking chunks of the books that I read over the course of the year and sharing you guys the details about it, the synopsis, and what I rated it, if I would recommend it, things like that. I know that my channel is not a book channel, but I do really love to read, and so I hope that those of you that do like books have been enjoying this series. But this is the last part, so if you haven't seen the first 4 parts, I will put the links to those in the description box if you have any interest in going back and watching those. But today is the last one. We're wrapping up the year, so the total number of books I read for 2023 is 57. I got a couple more books in at the end of December, kind of made that final push. I feel really good with where I ended up number-wise because originally at the start of 2023, I had only marked my goal as 12 books, and clearly I far succeeded that, so that is awesome. I'm feeling really good about that. But yeah, let's jump into the rest of the books that I read in 2023. I'm going to read the Goodreads synopsis to you and tell you what my rating of the book was. So really quickly, if you haven't watched the other videos, Goodreads has a 5-star rating system. So 5 is the highest rating, 1 is the lowest rating. Most of the time, most of my books are 3-star reads. They are good, but nothing like exceptional. 4 or 5s are like the real standout novels, and then 1 and 2s are the ones that I really didn't care for. So we're back to Frida McFadden with our first book today, and this one is The Coworker. I'm pretty sure this came out in 2023. This one also was a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for Best Mystery and Thriller. I think that Frida McFadden's name kind of, not that this wasn't a good book, but I think that her name helps. So Goodreads says about this one, 2 women, an office filled with secrets, one terrible crime that can't be taken back. Dawn's shift is strange, at least everyone thinks so, where Dawn works as an accountant. She never says the right thing, she has no friends, and she is always at her desk at precisely 8:45 a.m. So when Dawn doesn't show up to the office one morning, her coworker Natalie, beautiful, popular, top sales rep, is surprised. She then receives an unsettling, anonymous phone call that changes everything. It turns out Dawn wasn't just an awkward outsider. She was being targeted by someone close. And now Natalie is tied to Dawn as she finds herself caught in a twisted game of cat and mouse that leaves her wondering who the real victim is. But one thing is clear, somebody hated Dawn enough to kill. So, like I said, it's about 2 coworkers. One of them goes missing, and the other coworker kind of gets involved in trying to figure out what happened to her. But there are some twists and turns throughout the novel as well. And it's not, everything isn't exactly what it's portrayed to be, of course, in most mystery thrillers. I thought it was good. I gave it a 3 stars, but I didn't find it to be anything Goodreads Choice Award nominee worthy about it, but it was a good read, and I do like Frida McFadden. Maybe I'll skip to the other Frida McFadden I have to talk about today, and we can cross her off the list. I read 10 books from her this year. The next one I read from her is the best one. It is The Housemaid. So I would guess that this is her most popular book based on just what I've seen from people talking about this book. It's kind of all over my book talk, the ratings it has. Not that you always can trust a Goodreads rating, but it does seem like it is a definite favorite novel. This one is a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for Best Mystery and Thriller in 2022. This since has had other novels following it, so now it's part of a series. So I think the next one is The Housemade Secret. I have not read that one yet, but hope to this year. And then there's another one that's coming out that's not here yet. So So this is about a woman who has a kind of very dark history, a very dark past. You don't get to know the details of it, but you know that she has been into some trouble. There's some kind of shadows of her past following her. And she takes this job at the Winchester's home, this very kind of rich, upscale family, as their maid. So she cooks for them, cleans for them. There is the wife Nina and the husband Andrew, and then they also have a daughter. And when you first meet the family, everybody seems so perfect and kind and sweet. And then when she starts working for the family, then some really sinister things start to happen. Nina, in particular, the wife, starts being really mean to the maid, and she comes up with lies about things that the maid is doing. But this whole time too, you're trying to kind of figure out what her big secret is and what she did in her past that makes her potentially dangerous as well. This novel, I was able to figure out like part of the twist halfway through. It did become obvious to me what was going on. But then after you kind of hit that first twist, it keeps going, and there's more story, there's more twists and turns that kind of unfold after that. This was so good. Other than the ACOTAR series, which I talked about in part 2, I believe, this was the best book of the year. So between A Court of Mist and Fury, that was my favorite ACOTAR one, and The Housemaid, those are the top 2 books that I read in 2023. I gave this a 5 stars. This was so good. So many twists and turns, such a great psychological thriller. I really loved Verity from Colleen Hoover, and not that this is Verity, but I do feel like this novel gave me the same like twist and turns and like on the edge of my seat type of anticipation, where I didn't want to put the book down. I wanted to keep reading it and reading it. I loved this book. If you have not read this yet and you're really into good psychological thrillers, I highly recommend this one. So like I said, my favorite of the year other than ACOTAR, and definitely my favorite Freida McFadden book. So the second book in the series, The Housemade Secret, is high on my list to read. So I hope to read that kind of in the first part of this year. But then we're done with Freida McFadden. The rest are other authors. So the next one I read is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulik. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. This is one that also has gained a lot of popularity. This was a Goodreads Choice Award winner for the best horror novel in 2022. So Goodreads describes it as a widely inventive spin on a supernatural thriller about a woman working as a nanny for a young boy with strange and disturbing secrets. So Mallory Quinn is fresh out of rehab when she takes a job as a babysitter for Ted and Caroline Maxwell. She is to look after their 5-year-old son, Teddy. Mallory immediately loves it. She has her own living space, go out for nightly runs, and has the stability she craves. And she seriously bonds with Teddy, a sweet, shy boy who is never without his sketchbook and pencil. His drawings are the usual fare: trees, rabbits, balloons. But one day he draws something different. A man in a forest dragging a woman's lifeless body. Then Teddy's artwork becomes incredibly sinister, and his stick figure quickly evolves into lifelike sketches well beyond the ability of any 5-year-old. Mallory begins to wonder if these are glimpses of a long unsolved murder, perhaps relayed by a supernatural force. So this really is a mix of like a psychological thriller and paranormal at the same time. There are multiple things going on in this novel, the paranormal stuff as well as some other things happening, and kind of they merge in the book. This was good. I only gave it a 3-star. I didn't quite see the hype with it, but I will say paranormal books aren't entirely up my alley. Like, I wouldn't say those are my top choices, but this one had such good ratings. I mean, it's the winner for best horror in 2022. I definitely wanted to see what I thought about it. I just thought it was okay. I'm not a paranormal person though. I'm definitely into more of like the psychological thriller parts of the novel. Definitely glad that I read it and gave it a shot. Still was good. I mean, 3 stars for me is still a good read. It's, 3 stars is a book that I enjoyed. I just didn't like absolutely love, if that makes any sense. Okay, the next one is The Quiet Tenant by Clemens Michelin. This looks like it's a French name, and I am not even gonna try to I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it. So this is a really interesting book. This is a psychological thriller, and it's written about a serial killer, but it's written in the perspective of all of the women in his life. So it's written from the perspective of the woman he has locked up in the shed. It's written from the perspective of the serial killer's daughter, and it's written from the perspective of the serial killer's love interest. You never see his point of view or like his version of things. So the way that this book was written was really, really interesting and unique. I really enjoyed that concept. The story overall, I just found to be okay. It's basically like the perspective of these 3 women figuring out that this man is a serial killer and kind of what they go through to figure those things out. It's a really interesting concept. I just didn't find the book to be like anything amazing, so I gave it a 3 stars. But again, this is one that I've heard a lot about from other people, and so I think that it's popular, that a lot of people really like that one. Let's see. Next psychological thriller, I'm trying to maybe just group those together and wrap those up, which that's what I read most of the time, and then I have things, sprinkled in here and there. The next one I read was Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. Man, I read a lot of Goodreads Choice Award nominees. So this one was a nominee for Best Mystery and Thriller in 2022. This one says, can you stop a murder after it's already happened? It's midnight on the morning of Halloween, and Jen anxiously waits for her 18-year-old son to return home, but worries about his broken curfew transform into something much more dangerous when Todd finally emerges from the darkness. As Jen watches through the window, she sees her funny, seemingly happy son stab a total stranger. After her son is taken into custody, Jen falls asleep in despair. But when she wakes up, it's yesterday and the murder has not happened yet. Each morning when Jen wakes up, she is further back in the past, first weeks, then years before the murder. And Jen realizes that somewhere in the past lies the trigger for Todd's terrible crime, and it is her mission to find it and prevent it from taking place. So I gave this a 3 stars. It's an interesting concept because it's all about this mom trying to figure out how to stop her son from killing somebody and trying to figure out why he did this. And then it has the time travel aspect, so she keeps going back in time and back in time. And every time that she, wakes up on a new day or in a new year in some cases, she sees and is able to piece together things that she didn't see before, notice things. So it is interesting to think about things that, through your day-to-day life, little pieces of information or things that you don't think anything about, but maybe mean something much bigger, or maybe were a trigger for somebody or something like that. So that definitely was an interesting part of the book. To be honest, I had a hard time understanding what exactly was going on. Like why, like when it all kind of came out about what was happening, I had a hard time really understanding it. I don't know if it just didn't resonate with me, or if it wasn't explained super well. I'm sure it was just me, but for that reason, I thought it was just an okay book, and I gave it a 3 stars. But again, that's one that a lot of people really, really love. Okay, the last psychological thriller that I read for the year, and then we'll get into a couple of other ones. I read The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, another Goodreads Choice Award. This was the winner for Best Mystery and Thriller in 2021. So this is about a woman that she gets married to this man, and he has a daughter, and the daughter doesn't seem to like her too much. You know, it's the new stepmom kind of thing. Like, I think they'd only been married for a couple of years. They're getting to know each other. She's trying to gain the daughter's trust. Well, one day the husband disappears. He runs. His company goes down for like fraud and embezzlement or something like that, and so the husband takes off, and the wife has had no idea what's going on, what he's doing, why he's running. So basically it's about the stepmother and the daughter having to work together to really kind of piece this mystery together, figure out what's going on and why the father ran. So it's kind of a story. I mean, it's definitely a psychological thriller. There's a lot of mystery aspects to it. A lot of trying to put puzzle pieces together to figure out what is going on. But also it's a story about a stepmother and a stepdaughter's relationship and them bonding with each other and learning to work together. I really enjoyed this. This was a really quick read as well. I gave this 4 stars. 4 stars for me is definitely like a really great book. It stood out among the masses. 5 is like my favorite books I've ever read, like the best books I've ever read. So it didn't meet that criteria, but it definitely met, like, this one really stood out to me, and I really enjoyed kind of the mystery and aspect of them kind of learning to work together. Next, I reread A Court of Thorns and Roses. So like I said, I talked about this one, like the whole series, in a lot of detail back in part 2, I believe it was. I'm rereading them now. I'm starting to reread them. So in 2023, I just read the first A Court of Thorns and Roses. Currently, as I'm filming this, I'm reading A Court of Mist and Fury right now. I just felt like when I read these back in the summertime, like the whole series, for one, I read them so quickly because I was so invested in what was going on, and I was excited about them, and I just kept going and going and going, that I'm sure I missed details. I mean, I know I did. And I do think that reading it a second time around, now I'm, picking up on things that I didn't understand before, or there's like some foreshadowing that's happening. And so it's really fun to reread. So I'm not going to go into all the details about A Court of Thorns and Roses. You can check out my part 2 if you want, just because I've already talked about this in detail. But 5-star read for me this year. Loved it. And so I'm sure you'll see the other 4 novels in the series at some point as well in this this video series. Let's see, 2 more. So I read a horror novel. I read Salem's Lot by Stephen King. Now, I have a really love-hate relationship with Stephen King at times. He is one of the best writers ever, but I do find that he is really long and drawn out. He is very descriptive in the way he writes, and I think that really makes for him to be a really great writer, but sometimes it can just be too much for me. So I have to pick and choose kind of what I read from him. This is one that I have been really wanting to read for a long time, and so I finally got my butt in gear and read it. So this is about basically this town called Salems Lot, where there are vampires. And so it's kind of how the vampires got there, how the vampires are attacking the town. And there are a couple people that realize what's going on and try to stop it. So it is that story about, Salem's Lot. I gave this a 3 stars. I thought it was good. It's a very long book. One thing I find about Stephen King is that his books are too long for me at times, that he goes into so much description that I feel like you really could cut back a little bit. But all in all, I do think he's a great author. My favorite from him is definitely Pet Sematary. Really love Pet Sematary. That's my favorite one. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read in general. It's just such a good one. I enjoyed this. I definitely would recommend it if you are a fan of Stephen King, you've probably already read this, but if not, this is a good one to pick up. Or if you kind of like the vampire novels, or like reading about vampires, this was a good one. All right, and then the last book of the year, I did put one self-help kind of book in here. I read Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I am not really a self-help book type person. They're not my cup of tea. I don't find that I really take a lot from them, but I do try to read them occasionally, and especially ones that are very highly rated or talked about a lot, because I do think that if they are that hyped up, because there are so many of these kind of personal development self-help books out on the market, that if one is talked about a lot, that there's a reason for it. And so I did want to read this one. So this book is just basically about how to build good habits, and gives you practical ways to build habits. And it talks about how you can start small, that small changes lead to big habits. And I thought this was an excellent book as far as helping you establish healthy habits and giving you really a roadmap and a to-do list on what you need to do. Just noticing this also was a Goodreads Choice Award. This was a nominee for Best Nonfiction in 2018. I do think it was a really good nonfiction. I gave it a 3 stars. One thing I feel like I really took from this novel is the idea of, he talks about, like, he gives very specific examples. And so one of them is for like weight loss and health and wellness in general, and just wanting to be a healthy individual. And one of the things he said was, just stop. If you want to be, a fit person, a healthy person, active, whatever, that before you do something, say, like, ask yourself, is this what a healthy person would do? And that's such a simple thing, but that has stuck with me since reading this. And so I have found that I've been implementing that a little bit into my life. Would a healthy person eat this? Would a healthy person drink this? Would a healthy person take that walk even though you don't want to? So what would a healthy person do in this situation? And if that's the goal that you have, then that's what you should do. So I gave it a 3 stars just because, like I said, these aren't totally up my alley, but I do feel like I took some things from it. And I do think if you're looking for any type of personal development book and you haven't read this one, I definitely recommend it. Or if you want to learn a little bit more about building habits, this was a great one. But you guys, that's it. That is the end of the 2023 book series. So those are all of the books between 5 parts that I read in 2023. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I'm going to continue this series into 2024. So we are going to do them monthly, do monthly wrap-ups at the end of, each month, and talk about the books that I read for that month. I have a reading goal of 100 books in 2024. That is a steep goal, and I have read 100 books in my life before, but it's been probably when I was in high school or young. I don't think I've read 100 books. I know I haven't read 100 books in my, teenage to like upper teenage to young adult life at all. I've never done that. And so reading is something that I definitely want to keep doing over the course of 2024. And 100 books a year is about 2 books a week. So normally I do a physical book and I have an audio book. So I think as long as I keep on the pace, it is doable. So if you like the book content, I'm hoping to have, 12 book videos in 2024 about books and things that I've been reading. So I hope that you guys enjoy that. But in any case, that's all that I have for you today. In any case, that's all that I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed. I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye.